Who doesn't know Starbucks? Well, but do you know what's their history? Starbucks is the largest coffee house chain in the world from the land of America. Starbucks was founded by Jerry Baldwin, Gordon Bowker, and Zev Siegel, opening its first store in 1971 near the historic Pike Place Market in Seattle. The three Starbucks founders had two things in common: they were all coming from academia, and they all loved coffee and tea. They invested and borrowed some money to open the first store in Seattle and named it Starbucks, after the first mate, Starbucks, in Herman Melville's classic novel Moby Dick. Alfred Peet, a coffee roasting entrepreneur, was a major inspiration to the founders of Starbucks. Peet was a Dutch immigrant who had begun importing fine Arabica coffees into the United States during the 1950s. In 1966 he opened a small store, Peet's Coffee and Tea, in Berkeley, California, that specialized in importing first-rate coffees and teas. Peet's success encouraged the Starbucks founders to base their business model on selling high-quality coffee beans and equipment, and Peet's became the initial supplier of green coffee beans to Starbucks. The partners then purchased a used roaster from Holland, and Baldwin and Bowker experimented with Alfred Peet's roasting techniques to create their own blends and flavors. By the early 80s, Starbucks had opened 4 stores in Seattle that stood out from the competitors with their top-quality fresh roasted coffees. In 1980, Siegel decided to pursue other interests and left the 2 remaining partners, with Baldwin assuming the role of company president. In 1981, Howard Schultz, a sales representative for Hammerplast, a Swedish company that made kitchen equipment and housewares from which Starbucks bought drip coffee makers, noticed how large the company's orders were, which prompted him to pay it a visit. Schultz was so impressed that he decided to pursue a career at Starbucks, and he was hired as the head of marketing in 1982. Schultz noticed that first-time customers sometimes felt uneasy in the stores because of their lack of knowledge about fine coffees, so he worked with store employees on developing customer-friendly sales skills, and produced brochures that made it easy for customers to learn about the company's products. During his one visit to Italy, he was impressed with the country's cafes and discovered that Milan alone boasted 1,500 coffee houses. Inspired, he thought of doing something similar in Starbucks and envisioned turning a tiny regional operation into a national coffee house chain, via rapid store expansion. However, Baldwin and Bowker were not enthusiastic about Schultz's idea, as they did not want Starbucks to deviate much from its traditional model of business. They wanted Starbucks to remain strictly a coffee and equipment seller and not turn into a cafe that served espressos and cappuccinos. Seeing that he would not be able to persuade Baldwin and Bowker to embrace the cafe idea, Schultz left Starbucks in 1985 and started his own coffee chain, called Illinois Journal, which was an immediate success, quickly expanding into multiple cities. In March 1987, Baldwin and Bowker decided to sell Starbucks, and Schultz was quick to use Illinois Journal to purchase the company with investor backing. He combined all his operations under the Starbucks brand and committed to the cafe concept for the business, with additional sales of beans, equipment, and other items in Starbucks stores. Under Schultz's guidance, in 4 years the coffee house chain grew from fewer than 20 stores to more than 100. Starbucks entered into a meteoric period of expansion that continued after the company went public in 1992. In 1996 it began opening stores outside North America, and Starbucks soon became the largest coffee house chain in the world. By the end of the decade, Starbucks had some 2,500 locations in about a dozen countries. Schultz announced in 2000 that he was stepping down as CEO but would remain as chairman. By 2007 the chain boasted more than 15,000 locations worldwide but was foundering, and in January 2008 Schultz returned as CEO. These moves were largely successful, and by 2012 Starbucks had rebounded financially. Schultz again stepped down as CEO and was replaced as CEO by Kevin Johnson in 2017. Schultz continued to be active in the company, serving as executive chairman until 2018, when he was replaced by Myron Ullman. In 2021, Starbucks had a presence in dozens of countries around the globe and operated over 32,000 stores. During this time, however, Starbucks was also facing various challenges. Notably, workers at several of its stores began to unionize, despite opposition from the company. In addition, the COVID-19 pandemic and related supply chain issues had a negative impact on sales, especially in China, one of the company's key markets. In 2022, Johnson abruptly departed, and Schultz returned as interim CEO. Later that year, Starbucks announced that it had hired Laxman Narasimhan to replace Schultz in 2023.